welcome to Funday Monday number 15. And today we are going to learn how to sew an applique onto a project. And the project that I'm going to put it on is the corner to corner blanket that we have just finished on our Wednesday on the hook. I'm going to add it to one of the corners of the blanket. So you will need a project. You will need an applique. This one came from Hobby Lobby and I paid $3.99 for it. You will need some matching thread. On mine, if you look, there is like a light green all the way around the entire caterpillar. So I'm using a light green thread to match. I have gone ahead and put some on a needle, doubling it up and knotting it at the end. And I have probably about 40 inches. Hopefully that will be enough, but if not, we'll just grab more if we need to. And you'll need a pair of scissors. So if you're ready to get started, go ahead and meet me at the craft table and we're gonna put our applique onto our project. So here is our cute little caterpillar, and I am just going to show you the back of him. He is just a regular iron-on patch that we are going to sew down. Now I have placed him on a corner of the blanket so that when the blanket is spread out, let me kind of bring this up a little bit, but he is just kind of sitting on this corner at an angle. Okay, so let's turn him back so we can work on this and you can see everything that I'm doing. Make sure I've got him right where I want him. And then we have our needle and thread. And at the very end of our thread, we have already secured it with a knot. I do have my thread double layered. So there's actually 2 strands. All right. So depending on what your patch is, will determine where you may or may not want to begin so that your knot is not seen and it is sturdy and in a place where you know it's not going to come out. I'm going to come right between the antennas right here. I'm going to try and get it right in the middle of them like that. And I'm going to go ahead and pull it all the way through so that I know that my knot is right here and it's not in an area where it's going to be seen. Now, I'm going to pull that knot out just a little bit and I'm going to come back through my antenna, almost right beside it, but not in the same spot. And I'm going to pull it through. It's getting caught up on his little legs. Until we start getting him secured, that's probably going to happen. So just take our time and be patient. Then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to separate where the knot was, and I'm going to pull my thread through that. And this is just helping to secure it down. So over time and washing that knot won't come through the applique because it's secured down. All right, we are now ready to begin. So again, I'm going to place my caterpillar where I want it on the blanket. And I just have to be careful since I am working with such a long thread. And then once I know where I want it, just almost like we do with crocheting and we're putting an applique on something, instead of taking our needle and going straight through all the way to the back of the blanket or the project that we're sewing it onto, we're just going to kind of go up under just a few of the top layers and pull our needle and yarn through. And this way the thread will not be seen on the back of the blanket. All right. So then I'm going to come up into the antenna here and just pull that all the way through. And at this point we have already started to attach it. So, and the more we get done, the easier it will get because we'll already have a part of it holding down, and so it'll help to keep it in place a little bit better. So now I'm going to come right here into the little antenna again, and I'm going to come to the blanket, trying to keep his antenna out the way so you can see, and I'm just going to go under a couple of those top stitches. So I'm not going all the way through, and I'm just going to gently pull it through. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come back over and go up under just a couple of those top stitches, and then I'm going to put the needle into the antenna, and I kind of want to make sure I'm lining it up just right. I don't want it too close to the edge that it can tear out of it, but I don't want it too far in either that it's not going to have the caterpillar lay flat to the blanket. And we're going to do that again. We're going to go right through the little antenna here. We're going to go up underneath a couple of these top stitches, and we're going to just carefully pull the thread through. And again, we're going to grab a couple of those top stitches, and we're going to go right back into the antenna, and just pull through. And because we're dealing with such a long piece of thread, we just have to be careful it doesn't get knotted up. Okay. There we go. And then we're going to repeat and do it again. And then go right up underneath a couple of those stitches. It keeps catching on the border of the blanket. I think somehow I've gotten a little bit of a knot in my work, so it's catching. And that happens when you've got such a long strand of thread that you're working with. So I'm going to stop a minute and see if I can work that knot out, because it has since it has developed after I threaded my needle and knotted it, that tells me that it's probably, and there it is right there, that it's just the way it has bunched together. So I'm just going to have to pull it out. And if it's not too difficult, I might just do it right here on the video so you can see how to fix something like that. So it had two of them. Actually, I just got one out. Let's see if we can get this other one out. It's really small, so I might have to bring it closer for me to see. And that would take it off camera anyway. But all I'm doing is using the tip of my needle to work that knot back out. There we go. All right, I got it. Okay. So let me pull my thread straight and make sure it's straight before I start again. All right, and then we're going to come right back into the antenna. And it's going to take a while because I am not putting big spaces in between. I am actually sewing very close to where I go in and out because I want to make sure that it stays nice and firm on the blanket. So it's definitely a little tedious, but it adds such a nice little accent to your projects. And again, after I put it through the antenna, I'm going to come underneath here and just grab a couple of those top stitches. And I'm going kind of underneath where the antenna would be or where the patch would be. And it's very easy to get a little knot. So I guess I've got another one dealing with that long of a thread. So if you don't want to deal with such a long piece of thread, you don't have to. You can do a short one and then, tie it off. I just choose to try and do a long one so that as I'm sewing on the applique, that it is using the same exact thread to keep it a little bit stronger and sturdier. So I'm going to lift this antenna up and I'm going to come grab a few little stitches underneath it. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that through. And we're going to go right into the antenna again, just a little ways up from where I went in the last time. And again, through the antenna. And again, since I'm using green thread, I'm trying to stay right in that green. And I'm going to come up under a couple stitches again. And I'm just going to pull it through. And just make sure that you get it pulled through with both strands all the way. And then I occasionally will pull my thread all the way back up to the needle just to make sure that my thread is staying completely straight. All right, and I'm going to lift my antenna and I'm going to come back and find some little threads, some yarn, top layer, right underneath it. And then I'm going to go right into that antenna. And we're going to repeat. And hopefully coming around on this side of it, you can see even better what I'm doing. And then I'm going to come up underneath just a couple strands of that yarn. And pull it through. Lift it up and grab a couple of those top layers again, and then go right into the antenna. Try not to poke yourself. I have a tendency to do that. Sometimes I will wear a thimble when I'm doing this, just so I don't do that, because that needle hurts. And you don't want to pick yourself that when in jabbing yourself, it causes a little blood flow, because then you end up with blood on your project. And you don't want that either. I'm going to do a couple more, and then I'll stop and show you how it's looking being sewn down on the blanket. Right, so through the antenna there, I like to just get my needle out, and then we'll go right up underneath a couple of those yarn stitches, and then pull it through. And so you can see how it is getting nice and secure. I can't even lift it up now. So all of this so far is sitting nice and snug on the blanket. See? All right, let's do a couple more together. Come up underneath that and go right inside that antenna. Try not to poke ourselves, and just pull it through. I think I've got another little knot. And again, that happens with such long thread again. Yep, I see it. So we're just going to come right here. Let's see if we can pull it out. I've got it. Oh, and I've lost it. It's really tiny. So I think I'm going to have to go off camera to get this one. But I just go right into the knot and wiggle it until it pops back out. And I think I just, oh, there we go. Got that loose. So yep, it's out. All right. So I want you to keep working around. I will come back and join you halfway through and show you what mine is starting to look like. But go ahead and take a few minutes and continue working on yours, and we'll come back together. I just wanted to come back and check on you and see how things are going with you, getting your applique sewed on. And I'm about halfway through. I've gotten through almost all of these little legs. I've saved one little one left to do with you. But we are just about finished. Like I said, we're about halfway through. And I also want to just flip this a minute for you just to see how you cannot even tell that we are sewing on an applique by doing this method. So I'm going to flip back here. I am starting to run short on my thread, so we probably will need to be changing that up very, very soon. But let's go ahead and work a little bit more together here. So I need to grab up a little bit of yarn here and come into the top of this leg. And then I'm going to go back down into the leg and pick up a little bit more of that yarn. And come back through some yarn and grab the bottom of that leg. Trying not to poke myself. I want to make sure I go through both layers. We're still underneath the green there, so there we go. All right, I'm going to turn this just a little bit so I can see what I'm doing a little bit better. And we're going to go right down into the tip of this leg, making sure we get under both pieces and grab just a little bit of that yarn. And then go back up. And again, it's a little tedious, but that caterpillar is already looking so adorable on this blanket. And I'm going to pull the caterpillar back just a little bit so I can see my yarn and come up underneath a little bit of it there. And go back up underneath some. And now all of our legs are secured down. And we're going to come around here and grab just a little bit of this yarn to secure it. And then come right back in. And I'm getting really short on my thread here, so I want to go ahead and secure it off to come back. Now I'm going to want to make sure that I have secured this very tightly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come right here where I've got the little opening, and I'm going to go through there, and then I'm going to pull it down. Then I'm going to grab some of the yarn and go through that same little hole again. And I'm going to go through it, and then I'm going to go back through it to double knot it. Trying not to get it to knot before I need it to. I mean, it's not going to be seen. So, got a little bit of a loose knot there, but again, it's not going to be seen. So, and I'm just going to do that a couple of times. And of course, each time I'm kind of grabbing a little bit of yarn so that it is secured down on the yarn, and then I'm just going to snip that tail. And of course, that little knot will be tucked up underneath the caterpillar, so it won't even be seen. And then I'm going to take a few minutes to get some more thread and thread my needle. So we have rethreaded our needle, and I'm just going to come in here and patch was a little tough to get my needle in. And I'm going to do just like I did the last time. Going to leave a little bit pulled out. Come right in here beside it. And then I am going to separate the two strands and put my needle through them and pull this to secure it, and that way I've got it really knotted on there. And then we're just going to pick up right where we left off, grab a couple strands of the yarn of the blanket, and then come right back on and continue. And so we've got so much of it on now, we don't even have to hold it in place. It is just a matter of just sewing it, grabbing a couple of those strands and pulling it through. I'm trying to stay right in that green border. Here we go. Grab a couple strands of yarn again. Alright, so we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing and continue all the way around our applique, patch, whatever you are calling it. And then I will meet back up with you when we get back to the antenna. That is so cute. Alright, so we are back to just the antenna, and this is the only part that we have left to sew down. So I'm going to come right into the antenna, and since it's so fine, I'm going to go ahead and pull my thread all the way through, and then I'm going to grab up a couple pieces of yarn and pull my thread through, and then I'm going to come back under a couple pieces of yarn and pick up my antenna again. And I want to make sure that I'm keeping it spaced right as I'm putting it down so that it will look right. And let's do the same thing. Go back into the antenna. And back it out from underneath that yarn real quick, because I want to make sure that, like I said, I'm laying it down as it needs to be. So I'm just going to come pick up a little bit of that yarn and pull my needle through. All right. Pick up a little bit of yarn and go right back in. All right. Just grab a little bit of yarn and then put it right back into the antenna. And pull it through. don't think I got through it, so it actually came out the side there. Let's get through both layers. Again, I'm trying to keep it on that green trim and not get any of the black, but oops, jam myself a little bit there. But it's very thin, so it's a little hard not to get a little bit of the black. We're getting very, very close. Thought I had a knot that had formed, but I did not. We are very, very close to being finished. This caterpillar is looking adorable. About 2 more stitches and we should be finished. Gonna kind of go up underneath here. Hope you can see this. And one more right here should do it. Make sure I don't go on the inside of that thread. Don't want to knot it. Alright, I'm looking and I don't like how loose this is right here. So I am going to come back and grab some of that yarn and try to tighten that down just a little bit. This right here, I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, I think you can. That is a piece of the iron-on plastic patch that is sticking out, and I'm going to trim that off. Then I'm going to try and pick it up. Yep. Now, it's entirely up to you. You could, if you wanted, to take a light iron on a very light setting and go over the patch. I would recommend putting a piece of cloth. And I got a knot. There we go. I would recommend, if you're going to do that, to put a piece of cloth over this and then lightly iron it. I'm not going to, just simply because of the delicacy of this yarn. I don't want to take a chance of burning it. And I think it would be fine, but honestly, I have sewn this down very well. I made very small stitches, so I've secured it really, really well. So I am not even going to worry about ironing it. I was looking to make sure my antenna is down pretty good, and it is. So now I'm just going to do what I have been doing, and that is just kind of come up underneath this a little bit. And I'm just going to knot this off and double knot it and pull that tight up under that patch. And then I'm going to grab just a little bit more yarn right here, and I'm going to do the same thing. And then double it, and then pull it really, really tight. And I don't like that one because I can see it. I can see my thread, and I don't want to see my thread. So I'm going to have to take a minute to work my knot back out. But I'm kind of glad this happened because this is the life of sewing, crafting. Sometimes things don't come out as we plan, and we have to work through them. But I'm going to go ahead and pause this video for just a minute and work this knot back out, and we will redo a second knot that can't be seen. But it's going to take some time to patiently work that out because I don't want it to cut because I've only got one knot in there, and I want to make sure, oops, I got it. How about that? Well, maybe we don't have to go off camera. So let's take that back out. And let's see if I can slide my hook through there. Not my hook, my needle. Used to crochet, and there we go. All right. So now, find our yarn here, our thread, and we're going to try to work our needle right back through that spot. I didn't quite get it. There we go, there we go. So now we're going to redo it because I didn't like the fact that you could see that green thread. I don't know if you could see it, but I could. So that means that whoever ended up with this blanket would be able to see it as well. So let's try and do this maybe back over here on this little part. And we'll make our second knot going over here. And I see another piece of that bottom piece of that iron arm part of the patch. So I just peel that off. My thread is twisting, so I'm going to untwist it. And my knot, my double knot, and just work that right on down. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Sweet. And then snip. And there is our caterpillar. And it is completely secured down. And now let's look to see no green thread showing through. I absolutely love that. So that is how you successfully add an applique to your blanket. And I am going to pull this out so I can show it to you more from a wider view, and I hope that you enjoyed this. And And here you go. Kind of a full view. And that is adorable. Well, if you like this video, please be sure and give it a thumbs up. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe to my channel and select the bell so that you don't miss any future notifications. And I look forward to seeing you next Monday for our next little fun project together. And until then, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, and make your own joyful creations.